Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we are lineup building for week 7 of the NFL season over on Draftkings, more so focusing on cash game roster construction. Now the purpose of this video is not for me to give you guys a lineup and use it all of your contests. I don't even know what it's going to look like yet, and I'm building it on the fly. But I'm mostly just trying to target guys that have decently high floors, are going to see quite a bit of volume, they're in good matchups, they have nice prices, and they're going to be decently high owned, because we are not trying to take down a cash game. Remember guys, this is a cash game lineup build. In tournaments, yeah, we want those high correlated plays, we want the guys that are going to be low owned and take us to the top and win a tournament. In cash games, I'm just trying to beat half the field for the most part. I'll let other people make mistakes, and I'm just going to try to build like the projection optimal here. That's what you do in cash games. You can get different in tournaments, but in cash games, I'm just trying to use players that meet the criteria that I mentioned a little bit ago. Also, if you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like on the video, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really do appreciate it. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. So for cash games, I typically like to start with the running back position. That's the position that gets the most volume each and every single week. And there's a handful of guys I like in cash games. Now, if you watched any of my videos earlier on the week, you're probably thinking I'm going to plug in Aaron Jones first, which I would love to, but he popped up on the injury report, I guess yesterday. He didn't practice on Thursday with a mild calf strain, which that's enough for me to get off him in cash games. I don't think it's worth the risk of playing a guy that's going to be iffy for this game, and if he I don't know, not pulls it, but if he makes it worse in the game, there's just no reason for them to just try Aaron Jones out there and make it worse. I mean, they have Jamal Williams there. He's a capable backup running back, so I definitely have concerns with Aaron Jones, and that's enough for me to get off him in cash games and tournaments. Sure, you can still do that. It's a great matchup, and I think he's one of the best plays on the slate if he was fully healthy. It's just in cash games, it's not worth the risk with the injury, because, you know, if something happens during the game where he has to come out and it's just hurting him and he's in and out of the game, I can't take that risk at $7,200. So what I'm going to do first is plug in Alvin Kamara at $7,900. I like him a ton. And originally, earlier in the week, I thought that Michael Thomas was going to play, but he is going to be out once again. And Emmanuel Sanders is also out as well. So Kamara, I think we should probably expect double-digit targets for him. He's going to operate as the RB1 and the wide receiver 1 in this offense. And it is a fantastic matchup versus Carolina. They are one of the worst teams in the league versus the running back position, allowing the top 3 most points per game, and they're also nearly dead last DVOA-wise. And Alvin Kamara, his involvement in the passing game is absolutely elite, especially with no Michael Thomas and no Emmanuel Sanders, their top 2 wide receivers. So I love how this sets up for Alvin Kamara. I know he's a bit expensive, but there's plenty of value on this slate to get it done. And if you're looking at his numbers so far this season, in the passing game, it's been absolutely elite, and he's getting like nearly wide receiver 1 numbers. Like his target shares are nearly 30%. Looking at his game log, 10 targets, 4, 14, 9, 8. I mean, what he can do in the passing game is just far ahead of the field between any other running back, and he's also going to do some damage on the ground as well. He doesn't typically get a lot of work on the ground, but he's very efficient with his touches, and he's a touchdown scoring monster. So Kamara, he's going to be the first guy I plug in cash games this week, which is definitely not the way I thought I was going to start this video early on in the week, because I was assuming I was going to be playing Aaron Jones and building from there. I thought Kamara was a better tournament play, but with no Michael Thomas, no Emmanuel Sanders, and Aaron Jones now on the injury report, I think Kamara is just an easy lock and load for me, even though he's pretty expensive, but we do have plenty of value on this slate to get it done, especially with all the injuries we saw on Friday, which was yesterday. Every time I open Twitter, I feel like a guy was getting ruled out of the game, or at least popping up on the injury report. So Kamara, he seems to be in the safest spot there, and it's a great matchup at home versus the Carolina run defense. The next guy I'm going to plug in is Kareem Hunt at $6,800. Now, I know the Cleveland offense was absolutely awful last week, and that kind of was in tune with Kareem Hunt, as he only had 7.7 fantasy points. But keep in mind, they could not do anything versus the Steelers. Baker Mayfield looked pretty awful out there. I think he was playing pretty hurt. I probably shouldn't have even played that game. I think Case Keenum should have ended up starting. But it sounds like Baker Mayfield's feeling a little bit better this week, and he's not going to have to deal with that Steelers pass rush, which was all over him in that game. I kind of felt bad watching it. And they threw the early pick 6, dug them into a hole, so they really couldn't establish the run. And obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers run defense is pretty much the best in the league. But things get a lot softer here versus Cincinnati. The Browns have a team total of nearly 28 this week, and they are 3-point favorites on the road in Cincy. And this is just a fantastic matchup versus them. And the first time they played Cincinnati, they put up a ton of points. And Kareem Hunt actually had a pretty strong game. He had around 24 fantasy points. And keep in mind, that was with Nick Chubb playing. Nick Chubb is out. He is going to be the clear-cut workhorse on this team. And Kareem Hunt is one of the most talented running backs in football. He's also going to be involved in the passing game as well. So Love Hunt here. He should probably get over 100 total yards. Might even get over just 100 yards rushing. And I think he finds the end zone once or twice here. So big fan of Kareem Hunt. He's also off the injury report now, and I feel pretty good about plugging him in versus a pretty poor Cincinnati run defense. And that's like what I love starting my cash games with. The next guy is in the same game, and I think it's pretty obvious, and you guys probably know who it's going to be. But with Joe Mixon out, it's going to be Giovanni Bernard. He is just an easy lock and load in cash games this week, and I don't really see how you can fade him in cash games. In tournaments, if you want to fade him for, I guess, Kenyon Drake, it would look like Kenyon Drake was going to be the chalk RB3 this week, at him with him being $4,800 in that great game environment versus Seattle. But Seattle's run defense is pretty tough, and it's been hard to trust Kenyon Drake this season. So I'm kind of glad Giovanni Bernard became a play, because I was considering playing Kenyon Drake, but I didn't feel that great about it. So I do feel pretty good about playing Giovanni Bernard, and I got to say that mustache is pretty stellar in his profile picture. I'm not sure if I can trust a guy with that kind of mustache, though, to win me money this week, but I'm going to roll with it. And he's always played pretty typically well with Joe Mixon being out. He's a capable pass-catching running back. He should get you around 20 touches here. And at $4,500 versus a pretty poor Browns defense, they are a little bit better versus the run than they are versus the pass. But we saw James Conner have a big game versus them last week, and you got to keep in mind they were pretty much dominating that entire game. So it set up well for James Conner. And I don't expect the Bengals to be winning this game and be able to establish the run, but he's going to be involved in the passing game. It's going to give him a nice floor. And at $4,500, you don't need much. He's one of the best plays in the slate, and I love this price tag, so I'm going to plug him in. And that's kind of like your building block for cash this week. Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Giovanni Bernard, or at least in my opinion. And I think a lot of people are going to go that way as well. Now, at this point, we could either go with the quarterback position or the wide receiver position. But there's so many quarterback plays I like this week that I kind of feel fine just fitting it, or just throwing in whoever's going to fit at the end. Obviously, I don't want to just plug in a random quarterback, but there's quite a few options that I do like. But let's start with wide receivers. And there's one guy I know for sure I'm going to play, and that's Terry McLaurin at $5,800. I just don't see how you can fade him, especially in cash games at $5,800 versus Dallas, one of the worst defenses I have ever seen, especially versus wide receivers. I believe they're allowing the second most points per game to the position, only behind Seattle, which is nearly around 50 Draftkings points per game. And McLaurin's like the only good guy here. Yeah, Gibson's all right. Logan Thomas is going to see some targets, and there's a couple of other guys you can look at. Not really look at, but there's a couple of other guys that are going to get targets on this team. But Terry McLaurin, he is the man. He nearly has 50% of the market share of the team's air yards on this team. And you really can't get a much better matchup versus Dallas. They are just absolutely horrendous defensively, and I think Terry McLaurin's kind of a pretty big game here. I would be surprised if he doesn't go over 100 yards, and I think he's going to find the end zone as well. Like, he's just the only guy you can go to, and he should be able to eat up this matchup. He gets targets each and every single week, 12 targets, 7, 14, 8, and he's going to see that kind of volume each and every single week. He's a super talented wide receiver. The only thing that's holding him back is his quarterback play. Kyle Allen is not a very good quarterback. Dwayne Haskins isn't a very good quarterback. Then Alex Smith came in at one point in the one game, and I mean, it's just incredible that he's not even on a football field at this point, which hats off to him. But anyway, Terry McLaurin, love the matchup here. Love that price tag, and I feel really good about plugging him in this week. I just don't see how he's not going to hit value. Now, at this point, we have $5,000. And I think we can just continue moving on with our wide receivers. There's another guy I like quite a bit, and that would be Keenan Allen at $6,200. This is a great matchup versus Jacksonville. They're one of the worst defenses in the league this season, kind of like Dallas. And they're actually ranked 32nd DVA versus the pass. They're also not ranked very well versus the run. You can do whatever. I mean, I like a lot of the Chargers. I like Justin Herbert, who is a candidate to make this lineup. I like Justin Jackson. I like Keenan Allen. I even like Mike Williams. I like Hunter Henry quite a bit. So I like the entire Chargers offense. They have a team total of nearly 29 this week, and I expect a lot of points to be scored from them. But this is one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, and Keenan Allen's only $6,200, guys, and he's having a pretty good season with Justin Herbert. If you're looking at the numbers, Justin Herbert was thrusted into the starting lineup in Week 2, and ever since then, Keenan Allen has done very well, 16, 34, 14, and 10. He gets a ton of targets each and every single week. He actually even had an insane 19-target game versus Carolina in Week 3, and you got to keep in mind, Week 5 versus New Orleans, he barely played, but he did score in that game, but he left the game early with back spasms. He's going to be good to go. He got a week of rest with the bye week, Week 6, and I think Keenan Allen's going to, I was going to say bounce back, but he doesn't really have to bounce back. He scored 10 points, but he left the game early. He could have had a probably pretty big game. Justin Herbert ended up throwing 4 touchdowns in that game. So Keenan Allen, only $6,200. I feel like he's a pretty easy play. Like, he's going to get quite a bit of targets here. I'd be surprised if he doesn't see double-digit targets, and he should be able to pay off that price tag quite easily. So at this point, we have 4,700 left. I just spit all over my laptop, and I feel pretty good about the guys we have right now. We got Kamara, we got Kareem Hunt, Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, and Giovanni Bernard. I feel like this is a very strong starting point for lineups this week. Now, I think the question marks here are wide receiver 3, the tight end position, and the QB position. I know a defense I want to play, and I just feel like it's the chalk defense this week, but it's going to be hard to pass them up. But I do like the Washington football team here at only $2,500. I know they're not the greatest defense in the world, but DVOA-wise, they're actually not horrendous. And they're facing Andy Dalton, who's always good for a turnover or two. And plus, this Cowboys offensive line is completely beaten up. Zach Martin's going to be out, which was their best guy left, and since he's going to be out, I mean, this Washington football team defensive line is pretty good. I think Chase Young's going to have a day. I think he's going to be able to get some sacks, and I'm not that scared of Andy Dalton. If this was Dak Prescott at quarterback, probably wouldn't go this route, but with Andy Dalton at only $2,500, especially at home, I don't feel too bad about it. So we're going to plug in their defense at $2,500, and that's going to give us $5,400 left remaining. So at this point, I'm going to plug in a quarterback just because I don't want to get left with someone like Gardner Minshew or Teddy Bridgewater this week. And I think it's kind of come down between either Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, or Justin Herbert. Those are kind of like my 3 favorite quarterbacks on the week. And when you factor in the price tags, I love the matchup for Kyler Murray. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fit him in at $7,100. And the thing is, if I don't play him, I don't think I'm going to get exposure to this game unless I go with a Christian Kirk at the wide receiver 3 spot. And I want exposure to that game. And if I don't have anybody in this game, guys, don't think I'm trying to fade it. I absolutely love that game. It's just a matter of being able to fit these guys. And I don't know. It might be a little bit tough. For this lineup build, I'll go with one of the mid-range quarterbacks, and then we'll just play around with it a little bit. But since we have Keenan Allen, it would only make sense to use Justin Herbert as well. I mean, you could go with Matthew Stafford. I like him quite a bit. And if we have Kenny Galladay in this lineup, if we can afford Matthew Stafford, I'd like to go that route just because they're facing Atlanta. But just for this example, let's plug in Justin Herbert. I know he feels a little bit more tournament-y to me than cash gamey, but I don't know. I like this price tag. Their 32nd DVOA pass defense, the Jacksonville Jaguars are, and he's been playing very well since week 2, which is the only sample size we have from him. But 26, 19, 24, 27. New Orleans is a pretty tough defense. He threw 4 touchdowns versus them and almost won that game. So yeah, I like Justin Herbert a lot. I think he should have a pretty good game here. Jacksonville, like I mentioned, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And he's a pretty easy pairing with Keenan Allen. I'm not typically trying to get high correlated plays in cash games, but it kind of just works out here. And now we have 4,900 left per player. And we can go a couple of ways. We can either spend up for a wide receiver 3, and by spend up I mean more mid-rangey, or a little bit maybe in the 5K range, and then we could go cheap at tight end. Or we could go Travis Kelce, and we could plug in a cheap wide receiver 3. So I guess maybe let's build a couple of builds here, and we'll just play around. So the first one we'll do is with Travis Kelce. I don't typically like to spin up at the tight end position this week, but the way it works out, I actually don't hate it. I think it is one of those weeks that you could spend up. Now, the only issue I have with using a Kansas City Chief this week is that it's supposed to be quite snowy and quite cold in Denver. But I didn't see anything too crazy in the wind department, and I'm mostly concerned about wind when it comes to weather, because I remember last year, I think it was supposed to be a snowy ice game. I believe it was Packers versus Giants, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on the team they were playing, but it was definitely the Packers. And I loved Devontae Adams that week, but I got so scared of the weather, I ended up pivoting off of him. And I'm pretty sure Devontae Adams had nearly 40 Draftkings points in that game. If it's not super windy, I'm not that concerned. And even if it was windy, Travis Kelce isn't the guy that's going to be running phase down the sideline. He's more of the over-the-middle guy, or he's going to run an out route. He's kind of the short yardage guy. He can still make big plays, but he's not a guy like Tyreek Hill where he's kind of dependent on the long ball to have a huge game. So either way, I'm not that concerned. And even if it is a little bit weathery, I think that might only help Travis Kelce because he's going to check down a little bit more. So I'm not too concerned about that. And the matchup versus Denver, it's whatever. They haven't been that great in the past this year. They've been actually kind of strong versus the run. But either way, they have one of the higher team totals on the slate. And he's got the best quarterback in football, Patrick Mahomes, throwing the football. So I wouldn't feel bad about plugging Travis Kelce in. I know it's a bit expensive. I'm not typically one to spend up at the tight end position, but I don't mind it in some builds this week. And now we have 3,600 left, which I'm not sure I love. I think Gabriel Davis is there, though. He's either 3,500 or 3,600, so yeah, Gabriel Davis is 3,600, and I actually like him as a punt play this week, especially with John Brown being ruled out. And the last time John Brown was ruled out, this was week 5 versus Tennessee, and Gabriel Davis actually played every single offensive snap in that game. He had 9 targets, 5 catches, and 10.8 fantasy points, which isn't too crazy. But at $3,600, I will take that all day, and it really opens up your lineup. So we're going to plug him in. The Jets actually have the 31st DVA ranked pass defense. The only concern I have here is that I think the Bills get to quite a bit of a lead here. I think they're going to have to pass the ball too much. But at $3,600, you don't really need that much. And he's had some decent fantasy games so far relative to his price tag. And with no John Brown, I expect him to play a lot of snaps here. He's going to be in the starting wide receiver set. So we'll plug in Gabriel Davis, and I actually like the look of that lineup. And I actually think it's got a nice high floor, and I think there's quite a bit of ceiling there too. So you got Justin Herbert, good matchup versus Jacksonville. Kamara, he's like the only guy left there that's super talented. He's going to get a lot of looks. Great matchup versus Carolina as well. Kareem Hunt, super talented running back. No Nick Chubb, gets a good matchup versus Cincy. McLaurin kind of gets the nuts matchup versus Dallas. Keenan Allen versus Jacksonville. Gabriel Davis with no John Brown. Travis Kelce, pretty much the best tight end in football. Giovanni Bernard with no Joe Mixon, and the Washington football team versus an Andy Dalton-led offense. So I actually feel pretty good about that. Now, I wanted to try something else. So let's say we don't spend up for Kelce, because I'm not one that really loves to pay up for the tight end position, but I actually do like that build, so I wouldn't mind it. But let's take these two guys out, and then let's take the quarterback out and see what we can play with. So Austin Hooper, if you guys didn't know, he has been ruled out. I think he's having, an appendix surgery? I believe that's what it was. That was kind of out of the blue. I was not expecting that to happen. But so he's going to be out, which is going to open up some more snaps for David Njoku and Harrison Bryant. Now, if you guys don't know about Harrison Bryant in college, he was a very, very good pass-catching tight end. And in David Njoku, he's the guy that struggles with his hands. He'll drop plenty of passes, but he's super athletic. Like, the guy is insane athletic talent. It's just he has trouble with catching the ball. But we can plug in David Njoku here. He's only $3,000. I don't feel as comfortable with him as someone like Travis Kelce, obviously, but at $3,000, you don't need that much. Or if you want to go the Harrison Bryant route, he's only $2,500. Now, it'd probably take me a while to actually find his name, so I'll just look it up really quick. But so yeah, Harrison Bryant only $2,500. That would give you $6,900 left, which you could probably fit in a guy like Kyler Murray potentially. And I actually think you could. So let's see, Kyler Murray, and then you'd have $6,700 left for Kenny Galladay. If you happen to go the punt Harrison Bryant route, I'm not sure I'd really recommend that in cash games, but it does open up your lineup quite a bit to get a guy like Kyler Murray and Kenny Galladay. So it just kind of depends what you like. Do you think Kenny Galladay is a much, much better play than Travis Kelce? It just kind of depends, because Harrison Bryant, he's definitely not as safe as a guy as Travis Kelce. I just feel like the floor is lower in this lineup, which does concern me in cash games. But you get the QB1 in the year with he's kind of tied with Patrick Mahomes as QB1, and then you get Kenny Galladay in a absolutely nuts matchup versus Atlanta. Or, if we don't want to go the Harrison Bryant route and you feel a little bit safer with David Njoku, I imagine David Njoku would be higher owned, so if you want to go with him in cash games over Harrison Bryant, I'd have no issue with that either. And now we'll have $6,650 left, which means we should have, around 60? Yeah, we could fit in Kenny Galladay again. So we'll plug in Galladay, and we should be able to play Stafford as well, and then you get that pairing too, which I'd feel pretty good about, yeah. So it'd only have 100 remaining, but yeah, I like that quite a bit, because that matchup versus Atlanta, they're allowing the most points per game to the quarterback position, nearly 350 passing yards per game and over 32 DraftKings points per game. Should be a pretty high-scoring game, and I also like pairing up with Kenny Galladay. His obvious wide receiver one. Great matchup versus Atlanta. I believe they're allowing the third most points per game to the wide receiver position, right behind Dallas and Seattle. And Kenny Galladay's been great in the 3 games he's played so far this season, so that's just another way you can go. I kind of went 3 ways, but it's definitely a flexible week. Outside of the running backs, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, and Giovanni Bernard, I feel like you can pretty much go any way you want, which should make for a pretty interesting week, because there's a lot of weeks where there's one build that everyone's going to land on for the most part, maybe besides a couple of guys. But this week, outside a couple obvious running back plays, it's pretty wide open, because there's a ton of good plays on this slate, so I think it should be a pretty fun one. But I hope this video was helpful, guys. If it was, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really do appreciate that. I'll have my core plays video posted later today. Either be this afternoon or later this evening, but be on the lookout for that. If you want to watch my favorite high-end targets video, mid-range plays, or value plays video, I had posted that over the past couple of days. And yeah, it's pretty much going to be it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Also, leave a like on the video if it was helpful. I already mentioned that. Okay. All right, I'm just going to get out of here then. See you guys.